Work for Zach Smith Reynolds Foundation.
And I can go next. My name is Jay Nelson Weaver. I'm the vice chair of the Forsyth County Continuum of Care, and I work for Family Services. We run the largest domestic violence shelter in town, so we're one of the homelessness services providers. And on the Commission for Ending Homelessness, I'm a non-voting participant.
I'm Sharika Floyd. I am the Housing Programs Manager with the City of Winston-Salem. Here at the City of Winston-Salem, the Neighborhood Services Department oversees federal funding that benefits some of the homeless service programs, as well as assists with some gap financing with affordable housing. I'll hand it over to Ms. Lori.
Hi, I'm Lori Ingram. I am the Executive Director at Anchor. We were formerly the North Carolina Housing Foundation. We are an affordable housing developer and property manager here in Winston-Salem. And I'm excited to be here. I'll hand it to Cynthia.
So Cynthia, I think she went to you.
I think she might be frozen.
Oh, she might be, yeah.
Mindy, do you want to go?
Yeah, I can go. My name's Mindy France. I'm a licensed counselor here in Winston-Salem, and I am the one of the new mental health board member representatives for mental health.
Welcome.
Mr. Romero, you want to go?
Hey everybody, my name is Evis Romero. I am I work for the North Carolina Boards and Commissions Fellowship Program here in Winston-Salem, and I'm a new board member here for Commission on Ending Homelessness.
Welcome, Evis.
Thank you.
Ms. Wisely?
Hey y'all, I'm Renee Wisely, and I am a community member with lived experience. I think that's my position on the commission. And I also work for Second Harvest Food Bank of Northwest North Carolina.
Welcome, Renee.
Ms. Wisely, you are our at-large with the City of Winston-Salem. Ms. Christine?
Hello, I am Christine Roberts. I'm one of the nurse managers at Novant Health Forsyth Medical Center, and my specialty is behavioral health. And I do not remember my official title, Shrika.
It's fine. You're our social services representative.
Thank you.
No problem. Council Member Joyner?
Hi, everyone. My name is Vivian Joyner. I am the council member representing the South Ward, as well as participating in the thoughts of the full city.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, let's do Ms. Cynthia and then Kirby. All right, Kirby, you want to take a stab at it, and then we'll see about.
Yeah, sure. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kirby Robinson. I am the Community and Economic Development Director for the county, and I assume I am the county representative.
Welcome aboard.
Okay, so Miss Cynthia jumped off. Miss Cynthia Dodson. I'm sorry, Christine. I have you switch with Miss Cynthia. So Christine, you are at-large member and you was voted in by the Continuum of Care. And then Miss Christine Dodson works at Forsyth County and she is our social services representative. Thank you all for joining. Jay is going to do a brief membership review, and then we're going to answer any questions and answers that you may have. Everyone on the commission is fairly new. I believe Ms. Wisely is our only member that has carried over. Jay will go over a little bit about your role as a commission member and just a review, and we'll answer any questions. I would just give a little background is that the new selection of commission members we have placed a lot more thought lately into selection of commission members, and that is because we want to make sure that we have members who are connected to what we're trying to do and who can advocate and stand in the space along with our community partners. So we thank all of you for joining, and we can't wait to work with all of you. And I'll turn it over to Jay.
Thank you very much, Sharika. If you don't mind taking the agenda down, and then I can either share my screen or you can share the slides from the membership committee. What's your preference? I can share my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if I can figure that out. I am not, it says screen sharing disabled. So thank you, give us just a moment. I try to make technology my friend. I try to make technology my friend. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't.
Try again, Jay.
Okay. All right, are you all seeing a map?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So welcome to the new folks to the Commission on Ending Homelessness. And I would ask for Alan and Miss Renee and Sharika to correct me if I say anything that's not correct, because they have some longer history with this than I do. But the Commission on Ending Homelessness was created in our community many, many years ago to try to bring lots of different folks together around the homelessness challenges of our city. And over the years, lots of other initiatives have stood up and added, and some have come and gone. But the Commission on Ending Homelessness is our city's idea of one space where lots of different sectors can come together to try to work together to advocate for services, funding, whatever it may be, creative partnerships, whatever solutions we think we can create in our community to serve our neighbors who are unhoused, don't have a safe place to live, don't have a place to live, period. Along about 2009, the federal government passed an act that created a continuum of care structure around the country. So many of us now serve roles with the COC, that's the continuum of care. It's a federally designated entity, and there are lots of them all around the country. So this presentation I'm going to share with you is actually for the new members of the COC, but all of it also applies to commission members. So I'm going to walk through some details, share with you a bit about how the COC functions. And in our community, we now have the Commission on Ending Homelessness and the continuum of care operating at the same time. But they each have some different purposes, different roles. So my understanding is that the COC is really focused more, a lot of the COC is focused around the service providers, the many different agencies in town who are trying to serve our neighbors who are not housed, to coordinate, to bring resources together, and try to figure out how to provide the best services possible, as well as think about future initiatives. And then the Commission on Ending Homelessness, because it officially is not federally funded, it has a lot more freedom to engage in advocacy, to do some more creative partnerships with business community, for example. COCs are funded federally by HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and there are lots of very appropriate and detailed restrictions on what can be done with the funding, because I pay taxes too, and we all want to be careful with the money. But the Commission on Ending Homelessness has a much broader opportunity because it is not actually federally funded. It's a citizen community member advisory type board or panel commission that can make recommendations to city council, to county commission, to the business community, to service providers, whoever might be involved, to hospital networks. All those possibilities come into play. The COC has a more direct lane related to funding and government funding through HUD. The commission has a much broader possibility and advocacy role. So let me just stop and check on that. Alan, Miss Renee, Sharika, does that track with you? Am I describing that correctly?
Yes, you're good.
Well said.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go through some slides to share some information about homelessness. This is a little bit about homelessness in the country. Our community does have a challenge with many, many neighbors not having a place to live. In my agency, plenty of folk who come to our emergency shelter actually have their name on a lease or on a mortgage. It's just not safe for them to live with their partner. They're fleeing an abusive partner. But many, many cities have a bigger challenge than we do, and we certainly have a challenge here as well. One of the activities that every continuum of care in the nation engages in every year is we do what's called a point in time count. You might have heard of this called the PIT count. And this is where, like on one particular day in January, we have a whole community organized effort of hundreds of volunteers who go out and count our neighbors who are living out on the street. We also count all the people who are living in the emergency shelters. So we try to get a count every year of how many people are actually experiencing homelessness in our community. So these are some of the numbers from the last year. I think we're already gearing up. If anyone would love to volunteer, it happens in January. It's a really fun night. If you haven't done it yet, I would encourage you to volunteer and bring lots of friends. We go out and have lots of great conversations with people.
Yes. It's the last Wednesday of January each year, and it is at night. Those are all mandated by HUD, so we don't get to choose the time or anything. It cannot start until the sun has gone down, but we do it every year. And if you're interested, definitely let us know.
It's a great volunteer opportunity. Maybe if you have a faith group or even a youth group, lots of people are needed, and you just have to be empathetic and honest and welcoming to go up and talk to your neighbors. And we go out all over the county. So these are just some numbers about situations, what we're facing in our community. Sharika, can you give a 1 or 2 sentence explanation of what does it mean to be chronically homeless?
Chronically homeless are individuals who have been homeless for at least a year or have 4 episodes of homelessness within a 2-year period, and they also have a disability. So that disability can be developmental, mental, or substance abuse. So those are individuals who are usually considered to have high barriers.
So for example, at the Family Services Domestic Violence Shelter, a lot of the people we serve are situationally homeless, meaning they're homeless right now because they're fleeing from an unsafe space. But if they could get a little more money, they could get a lease by themselves. They don't have bad credit. They don't have a criminal record. They don't have a mental illness that keeps them from working. Like they can function well in our community. They just had to run from where they were. So they would not be considered chronically homeless, because as soon as we can help them get a little bit of help to start over, they can get into housing and continue in life. Many people who are chronically homeless fit that definition, that federal definition that Sharika just gave. There are lots of things going on. Those of us who work in the homelessness response arenas, we all say, what's the number one cause of homelessness? Lack of affordable housing. Like if we had more affordable places to live, people usually don't want to live on the street, would much rather be in a safe space and be in their own place. However, housing is not affordable in our community and many communities for many of our neighbors. So the lack of affordable housing is really the number one cause. And then we think of lots of other issues that come up. Like once you've been evicted, it's very difficult to find a new landlord who will take you, even if you have a job, even if you have proof of income, even if you don't have a criminal record. Once you have an eviction on your record, it becomes difficult to become housed, to have there are lots and lots and lots of other situations that come into play that add to homelessness in our community. Continuum of Cares started in 2009. That's when the HEARTH Act was passed. So the Commission on Ending Homelessness existed before then, I believe, and hopefully will exist forever, regardless of how much federal funding there is for homelessness services or not. The Commission is separate from the COC, but works alongside the COC in our community. So Forsyth County's COC is number 500. There are 12 COCs in North Carolina. And one of the COCs in North Carolina is called the Balance of State. So that means any other community that doesn't have its own COC, I believe they can participate in that balance of state, so that they also can try to help leverage federal dollars to address homelessness in their communities as well. The continuum of care is really the service provider consortium that brings all of these different services together to try to help our neighbors become housed and be safe, and to have as much efficiency as possible in the system. So one person just doesn't have to go round and round and round and round, spending all of their time trying to access services. The continuum of care has many different pieces that facilitate all of the agencies, lots of community partners work, and people with lived experience working together to try the best we can to have a coordinated system. So there are lots of committees, lots of different functions going on, partnerships among all the shelters, trying the best we can to prevent people becoming homeless, like you might actually be in an apartment and have a lease, but you just lost your job and you have no more money. So is there someone who can help you with rent just for a month so you don't get evicted? And then before you know it, hopefully you'll be employed again and you can stay where you are. The recognition is that's going to be significantly less expensive to our communities and to the system and to the taxpayer if we can help you stay housed, as opposed to you come out on the street and then problems start mounting up, and it's a much bigger hurdle for you to be able to get back into affordable housing than if you never got evicted in the first place. One thing I'll mention on this slide is coordinated entry, outreach and coordinated entry. So there is like a one-stop shop of a way to come into the services system. You call 211 and tell them you're homeless or need some homelessness assistance, and you would get eventually sent to coordinated entry. And that's where all of the shelters work together to see who has space. Can someone become housed in emergency shelter? Does anyone have any subsidies or vouchers or funding available to try to help someone get into an apartment? We try to work together on that. Family Services is the one who provides that service for survivors of interpersonal violence. So we actually serve domestic violence, sexual assault, adult and children, human trafficking, and elder abuse clients. But the other shelters in town are part of this. Many of the other shelters in town are part of this coordinated entry as well. So we're trying to the shelters are trying to work together, again, so we don't run people around, but do the best we can to put it all together. That's the emergency shelter piece. Rapid rehousing is the federal program that can help pay rent and utilities for a formerly homeless client who becomes housed, as long as they're in the case management program. And it can be 6 to 9 months, possibly longer. But the intent is that it's not going to be permanent You're not permanently disabled. It's not going to be a permanent source of rent payment for you for years and years and years. So in the federal government, rapid means, a year or two or less, 6 to 9 months. But the intention of rapid rehousing is to help someone get housed, get some of those situations dealt with so they can get back into a maintenance and thriving space in their life. Permanent supportive housing is more long-term for people who have a disability and qualify for that permanent ongoing support. Anything, Alan or Sharika, anything on this slide I'm missing?
I'm going over 2 of those programs, performance later, so I'll dive more into
Okay, perfect. So this is just a little bit of a graphic of how does coordinated response work. So there's some outreach, staff that go out to encampments to try to find people, find out why they're living in a tent. Could they come into services somehow? How can we help them get safe, get into housing, and eventually be housed on their own or with roommates or however that might work financially, but to try to access supports that may be available. This is some of who's in the COC. I think some of it is the same with the Commission on Ending Homelessness. We have hospitals, we have local government, we have mental health providers, agencies, all of us trying to work together. And then with the COC, there are multiple teams. There's a leadership council that is really like the flip side of the coin, I would say, to the Commission on Ending Homelessness. So the intent is that we really can support each other and each live into the roles that we have separately. With the work of the continuum of care, we really recognize trauma has an impact on how people can live their lives. So we try to focus on trauma resilience and helping people, clients and service providers and community members understand trauma really has a huge impact on why people end up on the street and often stay on the street. It's challenges working through many of the issues they're trying to work through. I'll just put it at that.
Jay, you want to go back to 11 real quick, and I'll just do a brief. So with the work teams that are listed here, so back in 2023, we had a third party come in to do a review of the COC, and that kind of developed a lot of the work teams and a lot of the changes that have come forth. We have these different work teams, and we welcome any of you to join any of these teams. Most of these teams meet once a month. We have our street outreach team. This is a group of street outreach workers along with code enforcement, police, fire, and BEAR that meet to, they do not only outreach together, but they also, they're called HEAT. They also do just a review of hotspots in the area, and they help with putting on the point in time count in our project Homeless Connect. Fundraising is another team that's led by one of our housing advocates, Dr. Arnita Miles. She is a local advocate for homeless services, and she focuses a lot on fundraising. Since COC is not a 501c3, when we reach out for donations as a collective, it can be very hard to get some type of monetary or in-kind support. And then we have our emergency response team who focuses on things such as what happens if there's a storm, or what happens during the winter, and those type of things. So those plans are created through our emergency management department, as well as some folks from the county. And then coordinated entry, that is our access point. So how do you get to the front door services? So there's a team that helps organize and reshape that. We'll talk a little bit about the changes of that a little later, that started September 1st, and how those changes have affected the system. And then our permanent supportive housing group, the goal of that group is to make sure that individuals are being connected to our project base and our housing choice vouchers fast and efficiently. So that's the group with our housing authority, and then individuals that have been through the system, as well as individuals who are case managers in the system. So making sure that the system is functioning well. And then our data action committee, they focus on our performance. And then we have our member, right now we do not have a racial equity team. But we also have our member engagement team that you guys met with, who onboard new members, and then our nominating committee, who takes nominations for anyone who is willing to join the COC or our executive meeting, our executive council, or this commission on ending homelessness. So if anyone is interested in any of them, definitely let me or Jay know, and we'll point you to the correct chair for each of those committees.
And the only thing I would add, I recognize with this slide, is that the Commission on Ending Homelessness also can operate outside of or in addition to the COC. Like the commission existed before the COC and feeds ideas into the COC, but the commission can also, for example, if it decides it wants to have an advocacy platform, the commission can do that on its own. There are things the commission can do on its own, and we would love, the COC would love to be coordinated, but the commission doesn't only feed into the COC, it also has a standalone role as well. I don't think we need to go into any.
Yes, that was a meeting.
Yes, these other pieces. And then this is the last slide, and then I'll just stop sharing. That there are ways to engage with through the Commission on Ending Homelessness, but also to engage with lots of other partners. There are multiple conversations going on in our city around homelessness and housing and affordable housing. So there's a lot of ways to engage. There's no one entity that's controlling all of it. Hopefully it's kind of like a hub of a bike wheel, but really it's more like 3 or 4 different hubs. So we're doing our best to try to share information and stay aligned and supportive. But there's not one group in charge of all of it. Lots of different opportunities. So I'm going to stop sharing. Any questions or thoughts about that so far? Make sense? Not make any sense? What do you think?
If there's no questions right now, that's fine, but always feel free to email myself, Jay, or Alan, and we'll get any questions that you may have answered.
Yeah, Jay, good job covering that, by the way.
Thank you. And I see in the chat, some folks are turning in some things in the chat, so we'll make sure to take a look at that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Sharika, are you going to talk about the funding cycle?
Yes. So we were supposed to meet to go ahead and distribute funding for this next 2026-2027 funding year. Right now, we still have not heard back from the administration, the HUD administration, on how or how much is, well, we know approximately how much, but we have just been told that there will be some new requirements. So we might be going to more of a block grant situation. So with that happening for some of our programs like permanent supportive housing, which are longer than 2 years, and with also some of the types of funding changing. So they're looking at adding additional eligible activities. We have paused our funding cycle. So there has been applications that have been submitted. The rating panel, which is a group of 7 to 11 individuals in the community, they have reviewed and ranked the applications. However, once the new funding information comes out, we do want to issue another RFP just in case there's anything such as transitional housing that becomes eligible again, or anything that may change, so that we can cover all our bases. So as of right now, we're still going to go to City Council just to ask for a request to still apply. And then we will go back and ask for the specific allocations once we hear from HUD. But that is where we are right now. We just found out about 4 weeks ago that we had to apply. Usually we find out in the spring. So we found out and then they changed their minds. So we're waiting. And I will keep you guys updated on where we land with that.
And one of the things the commission does is approve the funding once it comes about, right? Sharika?
Yes. Yes, so they would make the recommendation to the city council on how these funds are distributed. So the 7 to 11 community members, they will meet and they would kind of make some recommendations, and then they will present those recommendations to you, and you guys either send it back for them to make changes or reconsider, or you approve it.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Okay, Sharika, so you're going to take us through the performance updates.
Yes. So as of September 2024, the City of Winston-Salem, in partnership with Family Services and City with Dwellings, we took over our coordinated entry system. Our coordinated entry system was previously ran by United Way of Forsyth County through a phone number that was used where individuals could call in for homeless services. When we took it over in September 2024, there was a study done again to basically determine how individuals access our system. There were
Recording stopped.
There were meetings done with our with community members, with individuals who were at that time on the city council, as well as with local agencies. And one of the things they asked for is for there to be in-person centers and also easier ways to access the services. Also a push for marketing around how do you access these services, because it was kind of like no one knew where to go if they were experiencing homelessness or if they were about to face eviction. So what we did was we created different one-stop shops. Right now, the City of Winston-Salem has 3 staff who are co-located at the Dream Center. Until the Dream Center was up and running, we were at the county building. I believe we left in December, and from December or January until now, we have been at the Dream Center. And then we have Family Services, who works in collaboration with those City of Winston-Salem staff for anyone who is experiencing domestic violence. And then the City of Winston-Salem staff focuses on families. And then we have our City with Dwellings one-stop shop, who focus specifically on singles. Individuals are able to walk into either site. So if you are single and you just so happen to be on Liberty Street by the Dream Center, you are still more than welcome to walk into the Dream Center and meet with those City of Winston-Salem staff. But we do have them separate just to try to assist families in a more inclusive environment. So since that, we also contracted in September with 211. The 211 system allows us to have 24/7 call service for individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So prior at 5 p.m., no one's in the office. If you call, you leave a voicemail, they have 48 hours to return your call. Now with the 211, we have staff who are 24/7. So if you call, let's say a family calls, and specifically for families, we have, if you call, 211 has a connection with 911 dispatch. So with that 911 dispatch, they're able to contact 911 dispatch and have someone for the BEAR team, which is the city's behavioral evaluation team. They're able to go out and meet someone in an encampment or meet someone who maybe have just been displaced and place them in a hotel until Dream Center or City with Dwelling staff is able to meet them the next day. So in addition to the one-stop centers, we created the 211 contract and the 24/7 service. So from September to June, this is what we have, the numbers that 211 has provided in particular. So we have had 21,000 calls to the coordinated entry line since the program's launch in September 2024. And a total of 411 screenings have been conducted since the program launched. So those screenings are usually around individuals who are literally homeless at the moment, and it's looking at how can we assist you at this moment with basic need services. Those basic need services are usually shelter, food, clothing. 1,597 needs were identified, and then a total of 64 unmet needs spanning 25 categories. So when you look at, this is just a presentation of how well the CES and the 211 system has worked since September. They had an average speed of 1 minute and 20 seconds of answering the call, and the wait time in the queue was 2 minutes. Here you see the demographic by county. So with the continuum of care, although the city of Winston-Salem receives the funds, the continuum of care covers the entire Forsyth County. So this is a breakdown of the zip codes, with largely being 27105, so usually the northeast, and then that 27101 being a heavy usage of the 211 system. And the main needs that have been identified is housing. So you've had a small portion of disaster services, a small portion of healthcare, or a small portion of food and meals and other services, but 85% of the requests have been around housing. And then some of the unmet needs, so meaning that either the shelters were full or there wasn't any available service such as eviction prevention or anything like that. So that housing and shelter was at 33%, material goods 22%, utility assistance at 14%, transportation, domestic animal services. So that's calls about animals and assistance with that, and then temporary financial assistance. So this is just a brief overview that is being presented not only to the commission, but to the COC, just to give a brief synopsis of where we are as from September up until June with our coordinated entry. The goal of the coordinated entry is to allow individuals to access services without barriers. So that's the reason where you will see that a lot of individuals are coming in for so many locations. And the goal is to not make people think they have to go into an emergency shelter in order to obtain housing. So we've seen a lot of street homeless to housing lately. There's been a push for that. So as long as individuals who are eligible for RAPID, meaning all you have to do is be homeless, find a place, we are able to house them quickly. There are no barriers to housing. Any questions? And I'll be sure to share this report with you guys after the meeting. I skipped. I'm sorry, Alan. And then the next performance report we're looking at is our housing. So there are about 4 housing programs within the city, within the continuum of care. So we have our permanent supportive housing. So these are usually housing choice vouchers, Section 8 vouchers. We have our permanent supportive housing, which is project-based. So this is like 5th Street 1, 5th Street 2. These are units that are tied to the voucher. So if the individual moves out of the unit, the assistance is still tied to the unit. We have our rapid rehousing, which is rental assistance, short-term. It can go up to 24 months. And then HUD has a separate pot of money for domestic violence. So that is basically our bonus money. Anytime that we apply for domestic violence money, it is separate, usually for family services to assist those who are experiencing domestic violence. So within, just as a FYI, our HUD year runs from October to December. So what you're looking at right now is from October 2022 to October 2023, the performance for housing in the system of all of those programs. So we had 949 households enrolled, and of those 949 households, 193 exited to permanent housing. So that's a 20% of individuals exiting to permanent housing. And then whereas the current year is just comparing the last 2 years, HUD years, our HUD year of October 2023 to December 2024, we had 1,026 households enrolled in the system, with 157 exiting to permanent housing. So there was an increase in enrollment. However, there was a decrease in permanent housing destinations. Most of that performance drop in exits to permanent housing is the ability to locate permanent housing, especially with our housing choice vouchers. We have had a hard time locating willing landlords to work with our HCVs. So that has been an issue. We have been looking at more of acquiring and doing project-based housing in order to combat that situation that has come about. And this is just those 2 years compared side by side. Once this is usually presented in addition to a breakdown of each program and the amount of funding and things like that. But this is just a brief synopsis of what the performance is right now before we head into another program year. Go ahead, Jay.
For folks who might be new, I would just share that for funding through the federal government, through housing and urban development, there is what's called an affordable market rent that is set all across the country. So that's the amount of money that the federal government thinks is reasonable to pay for an apartment and utilities included. So when Sharika says, and Sharika, please correct me if I'm wrong, it's hard to find landlords. What we mean is it's hard to find landlords who will rent to one of our neighbors, our homeless neighbors, at that amount of money, because that amount of money is significantly lower than most landlords are charging for apartments. So it doesn't necessarily mean we don't have enough apartments available, but we might not have enough affordable apartments available in our town. So just to clarify that distinction.
Yeah, and just an example, like right now they did switch for 2025 to zip code. In 27105, the maximum amount for a 1-bedroom is $860. And so that amount must also include things such as utilities. So it's a lot harder to find a 1-bedroom for $860, especially one that would pass inspection. So that's kind of usually the barriers that a lot of our case managers are facing.
Because even like our case managers at the Family Services Emergency DV shelter, for example, we might find a landlord, but they've got to accept that amount of money and they have to pass inspection. Like we're not just going to put someone in any unit. It's going to have to pass inspection. If our tax dollars are going to pay for that rent, we want to make sure it's a decent place to live. So and lots of landlords are partnering with us, and that's wonderful. And we need more spaces.
Alan, I have nothing else. I know we were supposed to talk about the winter shelter, but Pastor Emily and Katie weren't able to jump on, so we're gonna hold off from that.
Okay.
Sharika,
Yes.
this is Renee. For the folks who are new to the commission, can you explain to them why we can't use public housing for those rapid rehousing vouchers? I know that comes up in community a lot. They say, well, we have lots of empty public housing.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. So with public housing, we do work with the public housing system to fill units. So we're able to refer tenants to units, especially those that they have designated for those who have experienced homelessness. However, it's considered a duplication of benefits since they are federally funded. We cannot pay for something that is already being paid for by federal funds. So that can sometimes, for instance, if a household is accepted into, let's say, Cleveland Avenue Homes, we may be able to assist with the deposit, but besides that, that would be the extent of the assistance that we're able to provide.
Does anyone else have any questions for Sharika? Does anybody have any other business or announcements or anything they'd like to do? Okay,
I would just share, if nobody else has anything, I would just share that there are a number of housing collaborative kinds of conversations going on in our town. I know lots of parts of the faith community are very involved. There are There are a couple of local churches that are interested in converting parts of their buildings, like Sunday school classrooms, for example, into affordable housing units or shelter type units. Lots of folks are trying to be creative about how to solve some of these issues to help our neighbors get off the street. So there's a lot of efforts going on. The Forsyth Humane Housing Network, Sharika's putting in the chat, there's a series of community collaborations and conversations that are going on. I want to say the Winston-Salem Foundation is funding that, is at the Forsyth Humane Housing Network. There's a consultant hired to coordinate those meetings. Lots of different folks are trying to address this issue, and we're trying to make sure nobody's out there swimming totally on their own so that we're coordinated as best as possible. So if you know of other things that are going on or other conversations that are happening, please do bring that back to this group or share with Sharika, so we can all try to be coordinated as best as possible and not duplicate our efforts.
Thank you, Jay. Anyone else? Okay, I have that the next meeting is September 18th. Does that match with you guys?
Yes, Alan. I didn't realize
Okay.
I was unmuted. Yes.
And Sharika, do we know when are we set up to meet in person, or are we?
This group, no. For what's the new name, Jay? CLC Council. They will be meeting in person September 9th at the Goodwill located on University Parkway. So if anyone is interested, that is where all of our CLC partners, there's about 35 different agencies. We meet in person every quarter. So we will be meeting September 9th. You guys are welcome to come at the Goodwill on University Parkway.
What time is that?
9 a.m. to 12 o'clock.
Thank you, Sharika. Anybody else have anything else? Okay, if not, then we'll see everybody September 18th. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.